Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Fireside Chat, where we take our international and English spoken readers to an exclusive interview on current issues in Malaysia and around the globe. I am Zuhra Zulkifli, and I will be your host for today. We have a very exciting topic that we will be discussing today with very esteemed guests. We will be diving into the minds of persons with disabilities, or most commonly abbreviated as PWD, social exclusion, and what is lacking on our side. I have with me today a senior lecturer in Azman Hashim International Business School, UTM, a research scholar in the area of PWD, Dr. Mazuwin Haja Maideen. Dr. Mazuwin is currently doing research on PWDs, especially on employability. And next to her is One Love Charity Society President, Mr. Jeyaraj Santraju. Mr. Jeyaraj here is truly an inspiring man. He has published his own book called Guidance for Wheelchair Bound, and he is also a PWD advocate. So before we get started, I would like to paint the big picture, and as you can see from the screen, is the statistics on PWDs in Malaysia. So on May 31st, 2021, Department of Social Welfare, an organization that manages the PWD registry, recorded a total of 579 and 150 PWDs in Malaysia, which is equivalent to 1.8% of the Malaysian population. And according to the National Health and Morbidity Survey, NHMS 2019, they stated that 11.1% of Malaysians above 18 years old have disabilities. 1 in 4 Malaysian adults experience functional difficulties in one or more of the following domains, which are seeing, hearing, remembering, walking, self-care, and communicating. And 4.7% children aged 2 until 17 years old have functional difficulty in at least one domain, including hearing, vision, communication or comprehension, learning, mobility, and emotions. So, before we dive deeper into this, I would like to ask a more generic question regarding PWD, and maybe some of our viewers are eager to know too. So, Mr. Jeyaraj, what are the initiatives so far from the government to make PWDs feel inclusive? And if there are any, do you think those are sufficient?
Actually, I'm in disability for 16 years, past 16 years. So compared to past 16 years ago and now, and I'm seeing that there are a lot of improvements, in the government and also in the private sectors. Okay, in government, because there are a lot of people are fighting our disabled rights. And the problem that, of course, they're giving a lot of opportunities for the disabled people. But the problem is, whenever the top level people are changed, when the times come, they have to change their position. So they bring out a new idea. So each time they will bring out a new idea. So that's where that we are stuck. And apart that, let's say something like educations, the educations accessibilities for the buildings, office, shop lot, they are building by law, but they don't implement 100%. I don't know why, but there is in government there is a law building by law, but did not implement 100%. That is the one of the thing. But let's say you are saying that is there any government are doing anything? Yes, they are doing, but it's not been fulfilled 100%. Let's say a person like a young disabled person who wanted to work after they finish their educations, comes to the education also is not so accessible. Okay. Once they are come out, wanted to work, they don't have a transport. Let's say they are staying in a far away in rural area, they have to travel by train. Is the train is accessible? No, there is a gap. And once they stop, they will get a bus. Is the bus is accessible? Not all the bus is accessible for that. I'm talking about a disabled person who is using a wheelchair. How about the blind? Because we have a few categories. I think later you will touch. So these are the things that they should, bring it in one together, a form, and they should make it 100%. The problem is we, our decision is made by the able-bodied person. Okay, apart that, my friend who in lecturer in Northern University, government Northern University, his name is Myo, and he's a disabled, and he's a lecturer over there, and he makes sure that these facilities over there are accessible. Although he's not a wheelchair user, but it makes sure that the wheelchair user, the blind, what they call the blind, anyone who has a disability, they can access. So each place they must have a disabled person, and that place will be fully accessible. We don't have a lacking of we don't have this, we don't get this. No, because the able body are deciding what we want. Whenever that there's a disabled person is in that place, and that place will be fully exclusive. And of course, the government are trying their level best. But how many disabled person are in the government sector? That is the problem that we are facing. We don't say that they don't provide anything at all. They provide, yes, but it's not a fulfill yet for us.
Yeah, so initiatives are being implemented, but it is still not enough for the PWDs.
Yeah, another thing I would like to add in that in 2010, and in I like to place in Selayang, there is a disabled counsellor. After that, they don't have the disabled counsellor. I think in whole Malaysia. For me, is maybe you can say a request or what, right? It's a request. We need a city council or municipal council or district council. They should have a disabled counsellor. Each place must have a disabled counsellor. When they have a disabled counsellor in that council itself, that place, that particular place will be, I'm not talking about fully accessible, there will be a fully awareness for the disabled people, and it won't be neglected.
Yes, true. Yeah, so that's that for Mr. Jeyaraj. And maybe some of us do not know yet, but for most cases of PWDs, they do need a legal guardian or a caretaker. And at this point of time, we are currently facing an economic crisis. So maybe some of us might not know this, but having to take care of PWD children definitely requires the family to spend beyond their normal expenses, especially, for example, if the child suffers from, let's say, cerebral palsy. So the concern is, what if the PWD child comes from a B40 family who can barely keep up with their staple meals, and now they have to put aside some of their earnings to ensure that their child is in good care. So what is the government initiative so far to tackle this situation, Dr. Mazuwin?
Okay, thanks Zura for asking this question. Actually, there are many initiatives by the government, yeah. But the question here is the initiative sufficient enough? Is it enough? Like for example, government has this initiative of independent living program, yeah, for the OKU people, where they send a kind of coach to the disabled people to assist them with the daily life, the chores, and so on, about 5 hours a day, yeah, until they kind of graduate, yeah, they complete the programs, yeah, they are done with it, then they can actually live independently. Apart from that, of course, they give financial assistance as in 300 ringgit per month. Yeah, my question to you today, yeah, even to the other audiences here, is that sufficient? Yeah, 300 ringgit today with the high cost living, yeah, and especially if you are focusing on the B40 group, is that sufficient for them? Yeah, with some of the PWDs would need medical assistance in terms of like diapers, yeah, perhaps special meals, yeah, of course equipments, yeah, treatments, yeah. Let's say for example they need to travel, yeah, commute to the hospitals. How about their transportation? As what Mr. Jeyaraj mentioned, sometimes transportation can become a big issue for the PWDs. So the expenses, additional expenses for them to fork out the special transportation that is needed. So is this amount is sufficient? But of course, there are other programs like, medical assistance, and they provide equipments and so on, and things like that. It is there, in the JKM. But how much of this assistance is reaching the people? Especially when we talk about B40 community, who is passing the information to them? Are they capable of actually looking and seeking for the information here? Who is disseminating the information? And the last question is always, is that sufficient, even though it's there?
Yeah, so that's that on PWDs and B40. So before we move on to the next question, I would like to chip in just a little bit of information that there are a total of 7 categories of PWDs as stated by the Public Service Delivery and Local Government via their website. So the categories are number 1 is hearing disability or impairment, visual disability or impairment, speech disability or impairment, physical disability or impairment, learning disability, mental disability or impairment, and multiple disabilities or impairments. So maybe in terms of our education system, Mr. Jeyaraj, we know that the government has already implemented special education primary schools in some primary schools, not all, but that only focuses on the PWDs, not actually the mass. But is that actually enough? And maybe instead of that, maybe the government should start teaching the other kids in school on perhaps like the Malaysian sign language at least. So what is your take on this, Mr. Jeyaraj?
Okay, when I studied in primary school in 1980s, I was together with the sign language deaf and dumb, with them, studied together, but different classes, special classes. But after a few years, they are been separated with us. That means they went to a different school. So we was all able-bodied. Okay, until now, I'm hearing back that there are certain schools, like what you say, that they are still have studying with the same, under one roof. But my question is, why they must be separated with other school? That's one. Second, of course, sign language. Some people, they say that sign language is what I'm going to do when I learn about sign language. It's not going to be important for me. Yeah, it's true, but it's very important for them. But comes to the future, comes to the working adults, you need a sign language because you will be interact with them. But now, younger children, you won't. But another thing, the schools should implement subjects of person with disability. That means just now you have mentioned about 7 categories, right? It's not going to be a core subject, something like curriculum activities, Saturday, Sundays. They can hire, there's a lot of NGO, disabled NGOs, they can hire a blind to come and teach them, to guide them. This is how we live, this is how we are. What are it's not about difficulty to learn about the blind and to learn about impairment, multiple disorder, Down syndromes of children, to get to know about them. A school should have a curriculum on person with disability, including with the 7 categories. Why I'm telling you this is, I think you will remember this, that whenever their father, especially men, when they drive on the road, okay, they will see the car, they will go speeding, the children will tell at the back, Papa, wait, stop. There's a green light. We have to stop. So the father will stop. Pa, you cannot park at the disabled parking. Why? The teacher said disabled parking is for the special children. The impact of the children, you see how powerful, even though the father will listen. Maybe the man don't listen to the wife, but they will listen to the kids. Yeah. So these are the impact that we need to teach them from the ground basic. I'm not demoted. All the men. The certain men. These are the true story that people will listen to the kids. So we have to start to teach them about disabilities. But some people, they think that they will look from top to bottom. What is this? Why this fella have no leg? Why this fella have no hand? Why this fella on the wheelchair? This is because I will blame the government. Because the government didn't teach them. So I'm not going to blame the parents. maybe the parents doesn't know about disability. I became disabled at the age of 27. Before that, I didn't know. My friends doesn't know about disabilities. I didn't know about disability. When I became a disabled, my friends started to learn about disabilities. You know, it's this is the truth. So the schools, the government should start to implement about disability subjects.
I see. Well, that's a very great insight from Mr. Jeyaraj. Now, Dr. Mazuwin, in terms of employment for the PWDs, I think we can all agree that there are not many job opportunities available for PWDs. So, just a little fact, workforce participation among working age Malaysians with disabilities is approximately 4,500 workers in both public and private sectors. This is as of 2018, which is barely even 1% of the number of registered persons with disabilities in the country. So, what are the government efforts currently in ensuring that PWDs also have the means to get continuous monthly income?
Okay, actually when we look at government's initiative, they have implemented this 1% of OKU employment to be given to the OKU people. It started in the government sector. Of course, they spread towards the private sector. But the problem here, there's definitely a gap. Gap as in it is encouraged to employ disabled people rather than making it as a mandatory. If the government make it a mandatory, I'm sure everyone will follow. Exactly. Like for example, we make it a mandatory that you need to wear helmet, you have to wear a seat belt while you are driving. So we do that. Of course, some people will ignore, but majority will actually do it. So government has to implement this. Has to make it a mandatory to employ disabled people. 1% representation is not going to be that much. And as well as there's a lot of government's initiative in terms of providing employment with disabled people, like tax relief, for the renovation of the buildings and so on. They can actually claim for the tax relief and so on. But has this information being passed to the employers, especially in private sector? In what mode? They need to educate them. Okay, look here. If you employ disabled people, these are the facilities that you are going to get. But how much it has reached? And also, I think I shared a conversation a few days ago with Mr. Jeyaraj as well. Okay, those PWDs that is being employed in the employment, being employed actually, the normal PWDs, they get the allowance of 450. So the PWDs who are working, they will only get the allowance of 300. So it's additional from the of course they are gaining, they get the salary, but the additional 300, it's that sufficient. Even looking at like for example, for their transportation alone, other accessibilities and so on services, it's not really helping them. And the thing is, what is lacking, especially in terms of Malaysia, is definitely awareness. Like what Mr. Jeyaraj said. If you are actually the inclusion is in the school itself, you don't isolate the schools for the PWDs. The kids will know since young. Okay, this person are like this. They will learn. The same thing. They will learn when it comes to the people who are working with the PWD. They will try to understand. They will understand them. So in these terms, I would like to really congratulate this. There's this one KFC branch in Sentul. Majority, almost 80% of the workers there are PWDs. So in terms of encouraging, autism, I think there's also a cafe for autism in PJ. So in terms of encouraging the people surrounding, especially the managers, they take up, the training like sign language and so on. This kind of effort is still lacking. Okay.
Yeah. So, well, now moving on, since GA15 is just 3 days away, of course, we are going to dive into this topic just a little. So, okay, Mr. Jeyaraj, we know that we have one PWD candidate from PKR contesting in Putrajaya, and that is Dr. Nur Aisyah Maideen. Do you think PWDs would opt for PKR because they have a PWD candidate? And do you think with one PWD winning a place in the parliament could bring noteworthy changes for the PWD society?
First of all, I would like to, I'm proud and happy that we have a representative as Dr. Nur Aisyah Maideen for us to talk. At last, I hope she will win. She will win. Okay, be a positive lah. She win because so far we have a senator, and usually in that position as a MP, of course, she has a very big, huge responsibility, not only to take care of the disabled people, and she have to take care of the riot also. And of course, like what I said is certain like the certain decisions that the governments wanted to take, that is depend on the ministry. When the ministry is approved with the decisions of the, you know, with their peoples, with their policy maker, and the ministry will approve. So now we don't have, like earlier I said that usually the policy maker and the person who decide on the disabled people is the able body. So now there will be a changes that if she win, I think we have no worried about on person with disability, because she also go through the same thing. We go through the same thing, and I'm very sure that for the past years she also have suggested a lot of things to the government, and maybe end up be getting a negative things. Now this is the time that she will show that we are disabled person is not going to be left behind.
Well. So, in the same context, maybe you could tell us what is your like KPI or rating of Senator Datuk Ras Adi Baradzi?
Okay. Ras Sadiba, she's the best. Before she became a senator, she have done a lot of things. The best thing is she will give the best motivate. She will encourage each disabled people who became a disabled. You know, they will have no willpower. She will create to make a willpower. She will bring the disabled people to come out, such as she will make interesting to come and play sports game, not in Asia game or what, Paralympic, but it's a normal sports. That is the beginning part. She motivate a lot of disabled people. When she became a senator, and during that time it's pandemic, COVID pandemic, and she make sure that our disabled people to get the vaccination first. She had own place to vaccinate for the disabled, only for the disabled people. Of course, everybody also came, but majority, it was 90% was disabled. She did that earlier vaccination, the first dose and second dose. And during that time, she gave a lot of, she helpful for a lot of poor and needy people, disabled and the poor people. She helped a lot of people, and she's giving a lot of opportunities to the youngsters, like to be an entrepreneur. And let's say there's some courses is going on, she will go and find for the corporate company, you know, give us this, give us that. We want our disabled people to come and join, and she will share her opportunities to us, to the disabled people. So, but the problem is, up to certain level only she can go. Of course, the once we had we did a big protest and about JKMP, and JKMP is does not benefits for us at all, for the person with disabled. But she was in the government, but she trying to fight for us, but could not, because that is the ministry level. Minister have to approve. So that as a senator can suggest only. She fight for us, but she could not get the decisions, because the ministry have to answer. The ministry, the end of the day, the ministry have to give the decision. For me personally, we has a three senator. One is Dato Ismail, the first senator. Second is Senator YB Padmawati, and now she's a third one. And so far, of course, we could not compare, but I feel that she have done a lot of things. She have full swing everything till now. And I was surprised that I thought that she would become an MP. She capable enough to be.
Yeah.
And in future, I hope not only one Nor Shah Maideen, we need more than that. Why there is a 222 MP seat? Why they have to give only one? They can give more than that, or what?
Yeah.
Right? So hope in future we will have more MPs to fight for our rights.
Yeah, hopefully. So, back in February 2018, the Election Commission of Malaysia stated that there are various facilities to accommodate the PWDs for voting purposes. And this includes their comfort and guarantee of confidentiality on their votes. This happened way back during GE14. But in June 2022, then Bersih Executive Director Ngiao Chow Ying highlighted how our election law and election regulations have some huge loopholes, where the only act that protects the rights of PWD during voting day is number 19, bracket 10 and bracket 11. So let me try to simplify them. So they are expecting that the PWD voters that has difficulty in voting in the usual manner, such as if you are unable to see, you shall find someone trustworthy enough, or it could be the head of the polling station itself, to mark your voter's ballot and proceed to put in the ballot paper into the ballot box as well. And it stated that PWDs also have to make a declaration of their identity and their nomination. So, do you think this was what the EC meant when they announced that various facilities were made available for the PWDs to go out and vote? And when there are only like these two regulations, or like what is it exactly? Like, what do they meant by that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Mr. Jeyaraj.
So for example, of it's unfair for them that to bring a trustworthy person or the head of the SPR to go and vote them. We have to give them the chance, the feel. Usually what we say is, by seeing, it's not you're going to feel. By hearing, we are not going to be satisfied. So we have to touch, we have to see, we have to feel. Of course, the blind can't see, but they have to give them a chance. For example, who are unable to see, they should provide a ballot with braille. At least they'll be very happy. They will go like me. I go once, 5 years once, I will go and tick. Okay, like blind, they will go and let they touch with the braille, and they tick by themselves, not tick lah, by braille. Let it the headache, let it be the EC election general. They come to any point. But this is a suggestion of they have to provide a braille. Why they don't want to provide a braille? Then another thing is about mobility issues. Mobility issue means the person who bedridden. Okay, they could not come. How you want they to come and do the voting? Okay, like me, it's a paraplegic. Okay, I'm paraplegic. They are tetraplegic. Tetraplegic means their hand is not strong, and they need to adjust, and they need to mark. And if their cervical means they will be bedridden, how they going to vote? Like senior citizen who barely can't walk, how they going to vote that? So they have to provide facilities. And another thing comes to the blind. The blind, they have a very huge society and of course, they can have something like army voting, like undi post. They can have the disabled voting, post undi, what they call a disabled post. Let the disabled vote earlier itself, so that they won't have any clumsiness on during the elections time. They can probably they can come up rather than they are sending someone trustworthy, and anything can happen during that time.
Yeah.
Even though they can bring their parents, their wife, their children, their trustworthy, anything can be happen. But for me, is personally, they also have the feeling, the happiness to touch the braille and they vote. They must have that.
Yeah, so I think we can all see that some of the initiatives are being implemented, though they aren't really sufficient for the PWDs, and also there are major loopholes in terms of the rights of PWDs, especially with GE15 just around the corner. There are major loopholes for accessibility for PWDs to go out and vote. So all in all, I think everyone should feel involved within the society, and none of us should feel socially excluded from anything. And more opportunities and attention should be given towards the minority group in our circle. And we as human beings, I think we should educate ourselves on what's going on around us and not to stay in our own bubbles. I think when we go out and explore what is out there, we will and we can discover more flaws and loopholes, and from there we can make a change for the better. I'd like to end with like a simple act from an individual can bring a massive impact without us even knowing. So thank you, Dr. Mazuwin and Mr. Jeyaraj, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Remember to log on to sinardaily.my for the latest news, and do follow us on all of our social media platforms. That is all from me. I'm Zuhra, and we hope to see you again in another episode of Fireside Chat. Goodbye and stay safe.